So in this movie, we're going to explore solutions to stitching, and there are quite a few out there on the market that you should be aware of. Now, first of all, we talked in the last movie a little bit about two-camera stitch solutions that you can do right inside of After Effects. And I just wanted to draw your attention to Mettle.com. You can check out some tutorials based on how you can stitch some two-camera footage together directly inside of After Effects from one of Mettle's tutorials. Besides those two-camera stitches, there's a few different types of software out there. You can go to videostitch.com online to see a little bit about what their product has to offer. It's a stitching solution that you can use in order to put your virtual reality camera footage together. And in this particular movie, on my system right now, I have the GoPro Auto Panel video installed. So we're going to hop inside of there and just see a general solution of how we can begin to stitch stuff together. So I'm here inside of AutoPano Video Pro. I'm inside of a new project. And all I did was really dropped the 6 GoPro clips I had from the Omni directly inside this input videos panel that you see up here. The first thing I need to do is sync them. So syncing, as you can see, I'm actually in the synchronization tab up here at the top, can occur by using audio to synchronize or using motion to synchronize. And based on this little purple line, we'll call it the playhead, based on the position of where this is, we can decide to, again, have the synchronization search around this current time, 15 seconds before and 15 seconds after that playhead. The other thing we can do is use these two bars. So the top bar is the render bar. And one thing that I can do is grab onto this render bar just to decide which part of the footage I would like to export out of the software. And then there's also this thing called the current selection bar. So that's what's selected and involved in the synchronization as well as the stitch process. And there's a handy little shortcut here where I can actually press the F key. What that's going to do is have the current selection bar match that rendering interval bar. All these cameras you can see here at the 1 minute and 6 second mark, they already all start at the same time, so I don't really have to worry about synchronizing. So I'm just going to press apply, and what that's going to do is just going to keep everything as it is synced together. So once we're done with synchronization, again, if you didn't have an Omni rig, you'd have to either sync using audio or motion that's detected in the camera. We can move forward to the next, let's call it panel, or the next area. And I'm going to go into the stitching area. So the stitching area, what we're going to do is choose an area to start stitching from. So this might be, let's say, the moment when the action begins in the shot. The first thing that we'd like to do here in the stitching panel is to let it know what type of lenses we're using. And we're using GoPro Heroes in this case, as you can see here. But you can choose from a variety of different presets that come available here, or even choose to stitch mixed lens formats. Once you've chosen that, you can then choose where to stitch from. So current position means I'm just going to take this exact frame where I'm at and stitch from this point. Instead, what I can do is something called current selection. And you might want to choose this in the case of, let's say that your scene is changing very rapidly, i.e. you're moving closer to some action, or you're moving between scenes where the foreground and background change from being very, very far apart, and then you're all of a sudden in a scene where the foreground and background are very close together. You might want to have GoPro sample multiple sections of each of your camera footage in order to assemble a more reliable stitch. In this case, I feel pretty confident with the current position, so I'm going to select that. And once we're done, all we have to do is click this magic stitch button. So my footage is synchronized. I'm then clicking stitch, and in a second we're going to see a window pop up with our stitched together footage. So you'll see here on this right, this real-time preview. This is now my actual footage stitched together. We can see the real-time preview showing. In fact, I can close the input window. And one of the first things that I'm going to want to do now inside this window is to take this and make sure the horizon line is straight. So I'm looking at a couple things here. I'm looking at the tree. I'm trying to see the vertical line here just to make sure that's straight. And I'm also trying to choose essentially right now where I would like the viewer to look first when they end up here at this shot. And it could be a variety of different places, but I think over here towards this wire area is exactly where I want them to look. So I'm trying to first of all now just take this stitch footage and let it know, make sure that the horizon line is straight. This is one of the first things that you want to do after the stitch is complete. Now, A couple other things that you want to do as you go through some other tabs here is one is stabilization. So in some cases, you might want to stabilize your shot. And in some cases, depending on what the camera is looking at, there might be extreme different exposures from one camera to the next, i.e. a camera looking at the sun compared to over in a shadowy field. What you want to do is apply some color consistency throughout each of those 6 cameras into your assembled stitch shot. So what you can do here is use different types of corrections for correcting the overall image, such as exposure, compensating for vignetting, as well as color. Gradient we can ignore because it really just has to do with black and white footage. You can then also choose how often it's going to make this color correction, as in if the footage changes dramatically, you can up this number to apply different corrections throughout your entire footage. Just to see what this does, I'm going to click on the apply button. You can see there the correction that's been made across my footage. Now on top of this, let's look at some area called blend. And blend really refers to how these cameras are blended together. If you want the ultimate control, we want to keep this on sharp, as sharp is going to allow us to have controls over each of the areas of our camera. Let's call them the various masked areas that are used to assemble this equirectangular footage. Smooth, in some cases you can use that to minimize parallax issues that could occur throughout your settings. However, you lose the ability to essentially manipulate your masks manually. So keep in mind, in most cases, you want to keep this on sharp in order to allow you to do manual changes through masks using a complementary piece of software, which is called Auto-Pano Giga. Auto-Pano Giga is the photo version of Auto-Pano Video. It essentially was created for creating panoramas, but you can use it in tandem for creating your 360 equirectangular videos. So if I go and press this edit menu, this is actually going to bring me from Auto-Pano Video over to Auto-Pano Giga. Here's my clip, and I'm just going to double click it, and it brings me in again the still version of Auto-Pano Video. One thing right away that I can see that I didn't see by default inside Auto-Pano Video is something called an RMS number. RMS is kind of like your quality dial. The lower it is, the better the software thinks the stitch is. And right now it's thinking my stitch is pretty good. There are a ton of tools in here, just like Auto-Pano Video, and a few that you might want to get familiar with, especially for woodworking to help your video, is first of all this vertical line tool. And this is just a great way for you to draw lines that are supposed to be vertical on across your footage. So if I select this vertical line tool, and I click and I drag here in the interface, I can try to tell the system what a vertical line is. And then by pressing return, it's going to try to adapt the clip to make it more straight. In fact, I can draw several straight lines in order to get a better horizon line assembled here. Another thing besides this vertical tool layout that you might want to look at is the control points editor. This will actually show you how each of these clips were assembled. What it tried to do is in the areas where the camera overlapped, it tried to find similar points, and it used those points in order to stitch together the footage. Besides this, we can also see here the mask edition. And this, what's great about this is you can see as I hover over, you can see each of the cameras independently here. And if I ever ran into a problem, let's just say where a subject crosses one of these seams, I could choose to have one camera be used instead of another in order to get rid of that problem. So I can use these things called markers in order to create that. So besides that, again, you've got that control points where you can see the individual control points that was used to make up this image. And if I kind of just go here right now to the control point editor, I'll just give you an example here. We can sort of see how that stitching took place inside this window. So first of all, how the connections were made between each of the clips, and then the individual RMS numbers between those connections. But hopefully by popping in here to Auto-Pano Giga, it gives you even more of a sense for how things are stitched together. I'm just going to head back here to Auto-Pano Video Pro. And the last thing is, once you have your stitch, you can see there that all of the stuff that I did inside of Auto-Pano Giga, the still image version of the software, updated here in Auto-Pano Video. The last thing I need to do is to render this. Once I do, you can see that there's a series of presets available. One is I have the H.264 MP4 footage currently selected. I can choose a ProRes MOV format that was recently added as an export option, as well as uncompressed or a cineform MOV. And then from those settings, I could choose to apply them or then render them out. So you can see here the real output for this is going to be 3840 by 1920. And this is just a restriction of the H.264 MP4 footage that I'm currently exporting out of the software. There you have it, a little bit of AutoPano Video Pro solution for stitching. But keep in mind, if you've got 2 camera setups, it's going to be a lot simpler for you. But it's good to know how much work is involved in creating a stitch. People who experience your immersive video will be thrown off guard because it won't feel like it's believable.